Hi everyone, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling, and on this episode, one of my favorite topics is going through one of my bands that I love, their 8-track collection. And this time around, I'm going to go through my Aerosmith 8-track collection. It is complete as far as studio releases go. I am actually missing one that's a record club only. But in its place, I do have something else as a bonus to show you. So we'll get going on these. The majority of these are actually Canadian. This is my copy of the first Aerosmith album from 1973. I think this might be a slightly later issue, probably more from the mid-70s, although I don't think it's not from much later than that, because later than that, they took this picture of the band, made it bigger, had a different logo. It wasn't the actual Aerosmith logo, and it put featuring the hit Dream On, because Dream On didn't become a hit until 1976. So whatever the case may be, this is the version I found, not in bad shape at all. The next one, on the other hand, is much older. I can tell just by looking at it. Also, it's kind of dirty. If these 8 tracks could talk, they've been places, I'm sure. It's 1974, the second Aerosmith album, Get Your Wings. A fantastic album. This is a Canadian issue, slightly different shape to the molding, and that's what it looks like on the side. So I would say this is pretty much right from 1974. That's a primitive version of their Wings logo. They hadn't quite gotten it there yet. Third Aerosmith 8-track or album was the breakthrough one, and I'm sure they sold a lot of 8 tracks back in the day. Toys in the Attic, 1975. Now, unlike a lot of the 8 tracks of the time, this is a black casing instead of a red one. I've seen lots of red ones, actually. This is probably a reissue, but I'm not sure about that. Next up is one of my favorite Aerosmith albums ever, and I was lucky enough to find a copy that's in just great shape. This is Rocks from 1976, another Canadian copy. Not a lot of, hardly anything for bubbling on here, just in good shape. 1977, it was actually the first record cover to feature their Wings logo on it, but in the 8-track version, it's not there at all. It's Draw the Line from 1977. There's a little bit of bubbling on here, but it's not in the artwork itself, so not bad. Next up, 1978, the inevitable live album that all bands had to do, live bootleg. I can, comparing these two here, this is heavier because it's a double album. There's more tape inside, but you can feel it, that this has got more inside of it. And obviously just more songs. You don't see this one all the time. Next up, one of the most overlooked, underrated Aerosmith albums. I talked about it till I blue in the face. This is their Fair Warning. This is their Creatures of the Night, the Underdog album, Night in the Ruts. It was a poor period in the band's history, but they still managed to put out a fantastic album. No logo on this cover. I just love this album. Could stand with a replacement. I've had this one for a long time. The side of it is, well, you pretty much can't read it. The thing is, you know what it says, so you can see it, but if you didn't know, it's kind of a mess. One of the first, actually no, the first Aerosmith 8-track I've ever found. Thank my good friend Chad for that. This one actually is 1980's Greatest Hits. Still a fine collection of early Aerosmith. The quick 10-song collection to get that fix. And of course, this was the first time on an Aerosmith album that their studio version of Come Together appeared. So, great collection here. And now we're getting into stuff that's a little bit more rare because we are getting into the 80s. The very last Aerosmith album to come out in retail form is the only US Aerosmith one I've got to show you from 1982, Rockin' a Hard Place. This is not that easy to find. And a good album, like Night in the Ruts, it doesn't get a lot of attention. This is actually the one that Joe Perry's not on at all, and Brad Whitford's only on one song. This is Jimmy Crespo and Rick Dufay. Again, though, attention to quality, they still managed to put out a better album than some of the ones that would follow. This is obviously a typical looking US CBS cassette, or 8-track, sorry. By this time, this barcode on the back. I'm actually quite fortunate to find. I've seen other copies of this that are in worse shape, so this is worth the bucks. So actually, there is one more. There's an RCA Music Service version of Done with Mirrors, which is extremely rare. I've never even seen it come up on eBay, and I've only ever seen pictures of it. But it's out there, and who knows, maybe someday I'll get lucky and stumble upon it in an estate sale, but I never find those, so I don't know. But I do have one other thing to show you. When Joe Perry left Aerosmith in 1979, he formed the Joe Perry Project. They did 3 albums before he reunited with Aerosmith in 1984. I happen to have the second of those 3 on 8-track. I've got the Rock and Rolls Again from 1981. This isn't quite the album cover. It doesn't have, like, it's just, you know, from here up for Joe. He's like standing, and there's a guitar case, but that's what they did with the cover to make it fit onto here. This is on Columbia. It's US. It's from 1981. First album, Let the Music Do the Talking, would look very much like this. And the third one, Once a Rocker, Always a Rocker, came out in MCA in 1983. I don't know if that one exists on 8-track or not. So that's a look at my Aerosmith 8-track collection. Thank you for watching Tim's Final Confessions.